Right, good evening. I put some pictures with what I'm going to say tonight. It seemed like the thing to do this afternoon. So, people learn differently, don't they? Some people learn by hearing. And I felt it was important tonight. I think some of you will get as much out of some of the images that are going to come up as you will out of what I'm going to say. If nothing else, it might make it a bit more interesting if you've had a long day and you're feeling tired. You'll have something to look at. My title tonight is really, really the most holy thing you'll have ever heard. Is the picture up? This is my title. Lost Hats on a Train Ticket. That's a good title because you're like thinking, ooh, what's that about? I went to London last weekend to see my sister who lives in France, and she flew in, and we spent a lovely weekend together, just the two of us. We'd not spent 2 nights, just the two of us, without parents or children since 1997. So we thought it was time, and it was lovely. And because I've been very, very, very busy recently, when I get very busy, I start doing really dopey things. Does anyone else do that? And your head just gets full, you're spinning too many plates, and you start to drop some. And on the Saturday when we got there, we're wandering round, and I had my hat. And later on in the day, I did not have my hat. So somewhere in London is my black woolly hat. It wasn't stolen from my head or anything, but I did lose it somewhere in the taking on and off of shops. So I bought myself a new hat. And then I lost my second hat. So I was trying to take really good care of my second hat. And then I also discovered that during the course of the weekend, I'd got 2 train tickets, my train to London and my train home. And at some point, as we were unpacking the cases, I put the train to London in my case, I put the train home in the bin, and then the lady cleaned the room. So during the course of the weekend, I lost 2 hats and a train ticket. I don't like losing things. I am one of the most efficient people I know. I like spinning my plates. When I lose things, it upsets me greatly. I was not happy. So I lost 2 hats and train tickets somewhere in London. When I was thinking about this week, I looked up on the internet, things left behind on public transport. Look at these things that are left behind. Put that second slide up. These are things that have been left behind on the public transport in London. I just thought it was brilliant. So this is what, there's a samurai sword, as you do, a prosthetic arm, like I'll leave my arm on the tube, a coffin. How do you lose a coffin on public transport? I was like, okay. A stuffed fox, a puffer fish. Who carries a puffer fish on London transport? A lawnmower, a park bench, and World War II gas masks. So I figured a hat and a train ticket wasn't that bad a thing to lose compared to the other things that have been lost on public transport. Now, it's really spoken to me this week about how I handle lost things. And it's really come at a time when I've been considering things that I feel like I have lost. And I listened to Chris's preach during the week, from last week. And I realised, I know I've really resented some things about my past and the situations that's led me to my present and what that means for my future. And you don't recognise these things as resentment. Unless you really actually think, yeah, it is, that's what it is. It's resentment. It's, didn't want to be here, I didn't want that to be happening, I don't want that to have a consequence. And it just reminds you of things that you have lost. Resentment comes out of that sense of, I've lost something that I was going to have. And those things are lost to me. Now, that does not necessarily mean that things aren't out there. Somewhere in London are my hats and my train ticket. They're somewhere. Now, maybe they've been burnt, but then in which case the ashes are somewhere, and we heard about the atoms, and they're somewhere in some form. Those things are out there, and they might be part of something else, but they are out there. It's just I don't have them. Now, I lost something else this weekend, which I didn't find out till Tuesday. My auntie died, and it's my mum's brother's wife. That makes sense. And this would sound terrible, but don't walk out and think I'm an awful person. But the train ticket and the 2 hats had more impact on the start of my week than my auntie dying. Why? Because I saw my auntie maybe once or twice a year when I was growing up. And I've seen her once or twice in the last 10 years. And I cared as much as if someone had said, when you find out anyone's died, you think, oh, that's terrible, but I didn't feel it. It didn't have any impact on me. I was concerned for my uncles, I was concerned for my cousins, and I think it's really sad, but it didn't really affect me the way my hat and my ticket did, because my head was cold and I couldn't get home. That affected me more than my auntie dying. It bothered me that I didn't feel it, if I'm honest. And then what happened was, I thought to myself, well, when did I stop feeling these things? Did I ever feel these things? Or do I only ever feel the stuff that actually impacts me? And then by Thursday, when I finally had a long conversation with my dad phoned me to tell me that my mum was really struggling because her brother's really struggling. At that point, it mattered because I adore my mum. My mum's like my hero. And so as soon as I knew it was bothering my mum, that's when I felt it. And it really made me think, what matters is what matters to me. And what matters to you is what matters to you. When it becomes mine, that's when I care. But what if the things that matter to us don't actually matter? What if the things that, it says there, things that matter most must never be at the mercy of things that matter the least. What if what matters to us and what we feel, my auntie dying and death matters more than a train ticket, but yet I didn't feel that because it wasn't mine. And what if during the course of life and the busyness of life and everything we do, what if we've, all of us to some extent, lost something very precious, and that's the way to live in what truly matters, and the way to connect to the way to connect to what matters, really that deep core. My cousins share my DNA, and yet I didn't feel connected to them this week. What if there's a DNA deep-rooted inside us that's God DNA that we're not connected with somehow? Now, matter, as in M-A-T-T-E-R, means this. Something that occupies space and can be perceived by one or more senses, a physical body, a physical substance, or the universe as a whole. We are matter. We matter. We occupy space. And how are we doing at that? How are you doing in the space that you occupy in life? How am I doing in the space that I occupy in life? Does my matter matter? Am I making my matter matter? Yes? Ant talked the other Wednesday about creation. If you weren't here, it was 2 or 3 Wednesdays ago. In fact, it was 2 weeks' worth of Wednesdays. And he talked about God shaping a Genesis week out of the chaos of life, and he's working his way through the days and what the days represent figuratively. And it's been really incredible. And he was talking about the first one that said, God said, let there be light. But actually, you think of light, sunlight. But actually, when God said, let there be light, that was not about the sun. It was actually about another light. And it was about the light of revelation. It was actually about something. Look at that picture. Ooh, revelation. It was about seeing in another way, in another dimension, seeing something beyond what we can see with our sight. And now my hats and train tickets are lost to me, but they still exist. And what feels lost to you tonight? Perhaps it's relationships or dreams that you had or hope or plans that you were pursuing. Things that matter to you. What feels lost to you as you sit there tonight? And what if those things that feel lost to me or to you still exist, but we just don't know where they are? Perhaps they are gone. Perhaps the train has left, or perhaps they will turn up, or perhaps someone will return them to me. Now, there's a section of the Bible that talks about a number of lost things. These are the lost things. Look, don't you love my pictures? I felt really ill today, but I had such fun finding pictures. Right, number 1, the lost son. The son made choices that the father did not want him to make. You can read these stories for yourself. The son leaves, he disconnects. The father feels lost, and the father has to wait it out. He has to just wait it out. He has to make the effort to keep his heart from resenting it and keep himself ready for the moment when the son is going to return. And he has to keep hoping, even though he can't see when it's going to end or he doesn't know how long it's going to take. And he has to live with the gap that creates and the heartache that creates. And perhaps with the questions about, well, what went wrong? What did I do? Did I do something? Did he do something? What could we have done differently? With the uncertainty and with everybody's opinions about the whole thing. He has to wait it out. Wait out the thing that got lost. The second thing, the lost sheep. Now, the man has 99 sheep, and he goes to find the one that's lost. Surely 99 should be enough. Why isn't 99 enough? Why isn't 99 enough for the man? Why does he have to have that one thing? And isn't it true that sometimes in life there's one thing that has such value that you can have an abundance of everything else, but there's one thing that we lack? Do you remember that story when the rich young ruler comes to Jesus and says, what do I do to have life? And he says, do you know what? And he says, I've kept the commandments, blah, 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 blah. And Jesus says, one thing you lack. And he pinpoints the one thing in his life that would make all the difference. And he says to this man, you've got to sell all you have. Everything that you depend on, everything that makes you self-sufficient, everything that you value, you've got to sell everything you have and give it away to the poor. And the man can't do it because that was his one thing. He could have everything, but the one thing mattered. And perhaps there is one thing that you need to address. Perhaps the loss you feel in your life is because of the one thing that you won't let go of. And there was the woman with the coin who loses it in the dust and the debris and the daily things of life. And she's got to clear out to find it. She's got to literally hunt. And she's got to deal with all the daily stuff that's built up and all the layers that are going on. And she's got to literally hunt through her life to find what was lost. So when we feel a sense of loss, is it about waiting it out and just hoping it turns up? Is it about leaving some things behind and letting go of some stuff? Or do we have to just go all out and hunt through some of the layers and really sort of tackle that stuff head on? Now, Jesus says that we have to lose our life to find it. We have to die to live. We have to give to receive. So to move on, it seems like first we have to miss out, doesn't it? It's upside down and a backward way of doing it. And remember the other thing that Ant said about the seed. Look at this, right? It gets dark first. I love that picture. For that seed in that first step, it's just dark and nothing is happening. Nothing. It's gone into the ground. Absolutely nothing's happened. How long does that process take? That's not overnight. That's weeks. That's months. And that doesn't feel fun. And does the caterpillar have any clue that it will become a butterfly when life gets dark, hard and suffocating? Does it know? Look, I love these. You've got the caterpillar. Does that caterpillar know it's going to become a butterfly? Do you remember the story about do you believe in delivery? And it was out the baby in the womb, and there's two twins in the womb, and they're having a conversation. And one of them's saying, do you know what? I believe in mother. And the other one's going, who's mother? And does the baby know inside that there's more than being inside? I've put a picture of Nelson Mandela in prison. Did he believe all those years that he was ever going to come out, that he was ever going to see the thing that he'd invested his life in? And Jesus on the cross, when he's actually on there, he had to believe there was more than that moment. He had to believe in resurrection. He had to believe his Father was faithful because he'd never been through it before. And so we can sit in our situations feeling completely lost, completely desperate, completely dark, completely hopeless because we haven't ever seen what's on the other side of that. We've never been that way before. We've just seen about Mary and Joseph. Did he believe there was going to be anything beyond that? So, do you believe tonight as you sit there in the dark, perhaps feeling lost, perhaps feeling like things that you had are gone, perhaps not knowing what to do? Do you believe that there's more than this? Perhaps the trapped feeling you have is because that's your cocoon. Somehow what you've been and what you've had and who you've been in the past has to become wrapped in something else because beyond that step is a brighter future than you've ever had. Perhaps you're a seed in the ground, like we've been hearing. Perhaps we are corporately. Perhaps there's more going on than we think. Now, what if what's lost and what some of you are perceiving as lost is merely the leaves and the buds dying from a tree for winter the roots burying deeper for a season, ready to blossom. I know you mentioned last week about the thing that Sarah Fox brought in that looked like it was over and gone, and yet it wasn't. Now, one moment tips it. Look at this slide here. I've been dipping into that book again, The Tipping Point. And I know I mentioned dominoes before, and I found that picture again when I looked at it. One moment tips it. One moment takes the thing from no shoot, the seed with no shoot, to shoot. Might only be a teeny tiny bit, but something starts. One moment brings a crack in that cocoon. One moment it's not there, next moment just the teeniest crack and it's started to transform. One moment brings the baby from the inside to the outside. I know it doesn't feel like one moment brings the baby from the inside to the outside, but it is a moment. And one moment, this will excite me today, one moment brings a Christ that is lifeless in a tomb, and then there's a breath. Just a moment when there's a breath, and it starts. One breath. It was dead, completely dead and gone, and then there's just a breath that says, no, this isn't over yet. This is just beginning the next chapter. And if he can be dead, and he can be lost, and he can live again, then maybe, just maybe, we can too. Maybe that thing you see as dead and gone and lost, maybe, just maybe, it isn't. Maybe lost dreams can be resurrected. Maybe hearts can be mended. Maybe home, real home, can be found. It's Christmas time, isn't it? And we were talking about Narnia. And in one moment, we talked about how in one breath Jesus goes from dead to alive. In one moment, inside of Mary, God, who has been somewhere else, not Emmanuel, not God is with us, in one moment, a breath starts, a moment starts, and God incarnate is now in the world, inside. In one moment. I mean, I just think that's like, woo, massive, 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 massive. Are you all there? Okay. Now, I have lost, like you, I'm sure, I have lost some things that I am sad about. And I've lost some things that I'm not always sure what to do about. But I believe in resurrection. Does anybody else believe in resurrection? And I believe in God with us. And I believe in revelation. And again, I am reminding myself and kicking myself to say, stop living by the light as in the natural light, what I can see, and getting back to that place that I lost, of walking by revelation again and just thinking, no, you can't just go with what you can see. There is more to it than that. And some of you in here tonight feel lost because you feel like you've lost what matters to you. And some of you in here tonight don't feel lost because you haven't lost what matters to you. But does that mean you're okay? Because I suppose it depends on whether what you're holding on to is what matters, what really matters. So let me ask you a question tonight that Jesus asked Peter. He said, who do you say I am? Who do you say I am? And I asked myself this question the other day, and I have to say, I sat and thought about it for about an hour, and I've come to a slight conclusion, but I've got to do more thinking. If you discovered tonight that there was no God, I mean, something proved beyond any shadow of a doubt that God could not possibly be real, what would you lose? What would you lose if God was not in your belief system? Because actually, if you have a good old think about that question, what it exposes is actually what you believe about God and who he is in your life. And it's really fascinating because when I was sitting there the other night having a good old think about this, it's quite amazing where your head goes, and you suddenly realise some of what you've invested in is a bit flawed, actually. Ask yourself the question. It's massive. What would you lose? What would you actually lose? And it'll help you see what God in your life looks like. Now, the answer I would have given a few years ago is very different to the answer that I would give now. A few years ago, I would have said that this is what I would have lost, that I would have said, God gives me safety. He gives me certainty, because I knew where everything fitted and I had it all lined up. I would have said God gave me an absolutely massive confidence that no matter what, things were always going to work out for me. I always landed on my feet. Everything just worked out great for me because I had God and it was all fine. He gave me some kind of guarantee of some sort that everything was well. Now, I don't actually feel it anymore. Yay! I don't always feel safe with God. I don't. I'll tell you why. Because he stretches me and challenges me and wants me to go beyond who I currently am, because he's actually invested in a bigger story for my life than I have for my own. So that doesn't always feel safe. I don't always feel certain, because he actually challenges me to live by faith. So faith is being sure of and certain of what you don't see. It's really difficult to be certain of what you don't see. And sometimes, because it's stretching and challenging me, sometimes it annoys me rather than makes me feel secure and safe. I just think, God, why are you making me do this? I don't always feel confident, because as well, I have to let go of me relying on me and trust. So safety, security, and confidence all of a sudden aren't things that I associate with God. Hear my heart. And I also now know that life can hurt me, can hurt those I love, and can sometimes just not work out. Sometimes it's just rubbish, and things are awful. Sometimes things go wrong to the point where there is no way back with some things. Sometimes there is no way back. Things are gone and lost, and they're actually gone and lost. And that's the reality of it. So in that sense, the idea of God seemed lost to me for a really, really long time. And part of it, if I'm honest, still does. And perhaps your idea of God seems lost to you. But if I lose my life, I find it. If I die, I live. And I am more convinced than I have ever been of the love and kindness of God. More convinced than I have ever been. But I'm also more convinced than ever that being a disciple, a follower of the real deal Jesus, costs me and mine greatly. It's going to cost me and mine, because I'm going to be living for him and his. And that's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different thing. Now, I could still be in London now looking for my hat and my train ticket. I could. I could have hunted. I could have gone back. But I had to make a choice. It was more important for me to come home. And I can buy a new hat. And I can cover the cost of my train ticket. And sometimes what's lost is lost. And it's time to stop trying to find things that are gone and actually come home and move on and pay the price of whatever that was and live in a new day. I will always have owned my hat. That will always have been a memory of owning my hat, but it is gone. It's not doing me anything now, not doing anything for me. And I had a ticket, but I was careless with it, and I didn't actually end up getting that train. I actually ended up getting a better train. And I'm not being flippant talking about hats and train tickets. Hear me. Sometimes we so appreciate what was in the past that if we're not careful, we stay there. And it's gone. It's gone. It's over. You had it. You have the memory of it. But it's gone. And that's not where we're going to be now. And this stuff is hard, because losing stuff that we loved is hard. And losing stuff that we felt like we needed and that cost us something is hard. But kingdom costs something. It means dying to some stuff. It means losing some stuff. It means seeking revelation of what really matters. It means insecurity, uncertainty, and sometimes it just means you get some knocks along the way. But it also means great hope. Here's my next slide. Hope, like seed has. A seed has tremendous hope if it's planted. It has tremendous hope because it can become a tree. It can blossom, it can grow. It's got hope in it. Caterpillars have hope because they become something else. They transform. It's not the end of the story. Babies in the womb have great hope because actually I've thought about putting a picture of a grown person in there because it becomes something else. And it's a hope that really matters. Right. I'm going to finish really early. People are getting early now. Okay. There's a boy. I'll explain this picture in a minute. There's a boy I teach at school. And I see something in this boy. I see, when you see, I've only taught him this year, I see massive potential in this young man in my subject. And I've been sort of brewing on it for a few weeks. And I've been drawing it out a little bit. So I phoned his mum this week and had a long chat with her about it, and we talked about what we could do and to try and really build on it. And she was so grateful, as people are, when you say nice things about their children. I find they're quite grateful for that. They're not so grateful when you say not so nice things. But she said, why are you, she said, oh, it's really kind of you to phone. She said, she basically said to me, why are you interested? She almost asked, why does it matter? Why have you gone out of your way to do this? And I said to her, because I'm a mum and I would want someone to do that for my boy. And it really made me think, actually, if we could just see the potential in each other, if we actually lived our life, because I see something in me still, despite all the knocks and all the things and all the mistakes and all the things I could list off of what's gone, I suppose, wrong and what the bad decisions I made. I see great potential in me and my family and my life and my heart still. And do you know what? I see great potential in you still. And you'll be thinking and looking around this room today and thinking, do you know what? Everybody's got a seed. Everybody has got something that they can still bring and still plant. And I see something in us tonight. I do. And I see that things are not lost. On the contrary, we have been planted in a fantastic place and we are growing and we are transforming and there is tremendous hope. But this is where this picture comes in. We have to surrender to the process, whatever season we are in. And you might feel like you're in spring, summer, autumn, winter. It doesn't matter. Seasons are inevitable. And actually being wherever you are at tonight, surrendering to the process, believing that all things are working for our good. That is easy to believe when you're seeing good. But you have to believe that, and the revelation and the faith comes. And can you believe it's working for your good when it doesn't look like it's working for your good? When you're stuck in the ground and it's dark? When you're wrapped up in your cocoon? When you don't have a clue what's happening? Can you believe then that all things are working for your good? And my challenge tonight is that we stay planted, that we actually stay planted, that we accept that there will be seasons. I mean, look at that. That's the same tree, the same life with different experiences, but the roots are the same. And nobody worries. Nobody in winter looks at a tree and thinks, let's chop it down. And yet we're quick to look at each other's lives or experiences and says, oh, that's no good anymore. Let's get rid of it. But what if that's the season? Now, do we know whether or not, if we're lost, how do we know whether we have to wait it out like the man, leave the 99 to find the one thing, or go on a hunt for it and obsessively find it? Because one size doesn't fit all, does it? And for all of us, there will be different moments where each of those things are required. And I wish I could say, right, do this, and this, but sounds like a cop-out, but we really have to be willing to believe God for the wisdom in those situations to know what to do. And as I got to the end of what I was planning today and thinking, oh, God, what's my conclusion? I suddenly had this wonderful thought. I think sometimes I get so consumed with what I've lost and how I'm going to fix it and what I should do that I forget a fundamental, incredible truth. And that is this. Are you ready? That in all the years and everything that has been my journey, not for a single second has he lost me. Not for a single second. And I don't know where you are at tonight, but I can tell you, not for a single millisecond has he ever lost you. Isn't that amazing? And that fills me with great hope. Because it means that if I seek first his kingdom and his way of being right, which is by faith, not by my effort, then all of these things, and who cares what these things are? If I have kingdom come into me and I'm connected to Christ, I don't actually care what it looks like, because what I've discovered is this: if I'm connected to Christ, I can handle what comes. If I'm not connected to Christ, I can't. So if I connect and seek first his way of being, his revelation, his faith, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be more than all right, actually. I'm going to blossom. And For you tonight, I can't tell you whether the stuff that you've lost, you should be waiting it out, leaving stuff behind, or rushing around like a mad thing looking for it. But I can tell you this. He has not ever, for 1 millisecond, lost you. So the key thing is this: seek him. Not your solutions, not your answers, not your history, not your past, not your way of doing things. Surrender to another process and get out of the way. Get out of the way. How do you do that? It's emptying, isn't it? I know I've said this before. It's actually being willing to put down the stuff that you're holding on to because it makes you feel full, and to be willing to say, right, today, and this is stuff I'm going through, today I started talking to myself. Sometimes when you don't want to pray, I just start talking to myself and see what I say, because I find that works for me. I thought, let's hear what I've got to say for myself. And I started chatting away today, and I found myself saying, I said, you know what, God, I don't actually know what to do with some of this stuff now, but I know I still want you, and I know you still see me, and I know that I don't want to be anywhere else. So whatever that looks like, I'm here. I'm just here. And just keep doing your thing in my life, and I'll just keep doing my best to hear you. And I remembered these words of this song today, and I nearly rang and said, can you sing it? And then I thought, no, I think I'm supposed to read this out to finish. You'll recognize the song. Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, my constant friend is he. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. And this is my prayer tonight. Let not your heart be troubled. His tender words I hear, and resting on his goodness, I lose my doubts and fear. That's a good thing to get lost, isn't it? Though by the path he leadeth, but one step I may see. Sometimes you only see one step ahead, don't you? Sometimes you don't get the story. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. Whenever I am tempted, whenever clouds arise, when songs give place to sighing, when hope within me dies, I draw the closer to him. From care he sets me free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I don't know what you've lost. I don't actually know how you specifically are going to find it, but I do know that if you know you're not lost to him, that is a great place to plant your seed. Right. Let's pray. God, I want to thank you that not for a single millisecond ever have any of us been lost to you in any way. And we know, Lord, that seasons are inevitable. And in this room tonight will be represented every possible season. People who are in the dark place, people who feel like everything's blossoming and everything in between. And God, I just want to pray tonight that you will give each person in this room two things, Lord. I pray for wisdom and I pray for revelation to take root in their heart tonight, that they will see in a way that is crystal clear from the heavens, not from what we see by natural sight or natural light, but from your revelation into our heart, in heaven's eyes, Lord, let us see tonight. And for wisdom, Lord, because I know that for the lost things in here tonight, Lord, we need the right strategy. Right now, Lord, speak to each heart where there's things that people need to let go of, that they need to accept that what has been, and that to live and to grow and to prosper, that thing needs to die. Lord, for people that actually need to take hold of some stuff and stop burying their head in the sand and actually really pursue things and deal with some of the nonsense that might have been going on and holding them back. Give them a kick tonight, Lord, in the nicest, loving, kindest way to get them sorting through the rubbish that actually needs addressing and needs dealing with. And Lord, just help everyone in here tonight to know that they're not lost to you. And thank you that you see us, that you love us, and that there is tremendous hope, and bring us all into a new day and help us to blossom. And I just want to thank you, Lord. I want to thank you that you did breathe again when it looked like it was over, because we're forever grateful to you, Lord, and we'd be lost without you. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you.